Alright, we are back on the 2024 NFL Draft Board, and in today's video, this is going to be the 4.0 update, which is all of my offensive linemen are now fully complete and graded. So in this video, we're going to be going over offensive tackle, guard, and center. A few things I want to preface before I get into this video. Again, I will once again be going over the grades, blue chips, and then first round grades are all in blue. You can see exactly what they mean. Again, these grades are a reflection of how I view these prospects, not as a projection. I'll always make sure to preface that. Greens are my second round guys. Yellows are my third. Dark brown and then dark brown are my fourth and fifth rounders. Sixth rounders are in red, and then seventh rounders are in purple. Another thing, I'm always going to be looking at this side of the screen because I have my notes on these players, as well as if you guys want access to the 2024 NFL Draft Board, it is on my Patreon that you guys can see right here, Alex Regan NFL. The link is right here. I have made it free, so if you guys want to view it, it's free. All right, so we're going to start off this video with the offensive tackles. I currently have 28 tackles graded, and I've done all my statistics on them. I've also done prospect breakdowns on Joe Alt and Taliese Fuaga. So the thing that I will also be mentioning a ton is if you guys do not like PFF, if you guys do not want to hear any PFF grades, if you think they're totally wrong, then this might not be the video, because I do mention a ton of Pro Football Focus stat related stuff like grades and then the pressures allowed. All these numbers I really got from PFF because I am a data analyst for them. I worked with them for the NCAA, and I do know people that do grades and that do these do all blocking stuff. So if you guys don't like PFF, that's maybe a turn off for you guys. However, I'll be mentioning a ton of those, as well as I will be mentioning relative athletic score. I do think it has some value, but also being a good athlete is always a positive. But for offensive line, especially, not being a great athlete is not a negative. For other positions like running back, not being a good athlete is a big negative. For offensive tackle, it's not as big of a negative. Being athletic is just a bit more of a positive. But starting off this video with Joe Alt. Joe Alt's a beast. He's been my favorite offensive lineman in these last 2 years. Two-time All-American. PFF's two-time PFF highest graded offensive tackle. I did my prospect breakdown on him. I think he is a blue chip tackle prospect. Basically, he's my sixth player on my 2024 NFL Draft Board. He is 6'8", 321 pounds, 9.91 RAS score, which is he's in the 99th percentile or he's a 99th percentile athlete. Great pass blocking ability as well. He's a really good pass blocker, good pass blocking technique as well. Has a phenomenal lower body, is very, very sturdy, especially when going up against powerful rushers. Can stand up a little bit when, linemen get it to his chest early, because he's just got a huge wingspan that sometimes he'll try to envelop players a little too late, and then they'll get into his chest early. But other than that, this dude's wingspan just keeps everybody away from the quarterback, and is also a very good run defender as well. 0 sacks allowed, 5 pressures in 2023. Easily my number one lineman in this draft. That's including the defensive side as well. I think he's the best guy in the trenches. And then you got Taliese Fuaga. I, again, really like Taliese Fuaga. Did my prospect breakdown on him. He's currently 11th on my 2024 NFL Draft Big Board. People do have an issue about him with his lateral quickness and his pass pro ability. I think it's fine. I didn't see many. He only allowed 12 pressures in 2023, but when he went up against really good edge rushers, Leato 2 had a bad game against him. Jonah Ellis really didn't do anything against him. Braylon Trice, I think, only had 1 pressure or 2 pressures against him. But more importantly, Taliese Fuaga's best ability is his run blocking his run blocking ability. Really, really powerful run blocker. He had a 90.9 PFF run blocking grade, which was first in the FBS, as well as having a 9.61 RAS score for a 320-pound offensive lineman, which is really good. Amarius Mims is my third offensive tackle in this draft class. I really came on him a lot later in this draft process. In the beginning, I was like, his snap count is just such a red flag. He does not have a lot of experience, and he still is a bit raw. Again, with the snap count, only had 297 due to injury this year in 2023, but only had 385 in 2022 as well. But then when we're looking at him pretty objectively, this dude is a 6'7", 340-pound, 21-year-old beast. He 81 PFF pass blocking grade, 68.4 run blocking grade. I think is a little low, so I'm a bit short. He can run block pretty well, just kind of just putting his weight into people. Zero sacks allowed, one pressure. He had like a 99 pass blocking efficiency, something incredible. Also 9.55 athletic score, which is great. Dude moves pretty well for a 340-pound confirmed by the combine lineman, as well as having an 86-inch wingspan. This dude has a ton of potential. It's just more of the injury concerns and the snap count, really. But he played at such a high level at Georgia and a really high level offensive line there. I'm very sold on Marius Mims. And then moving on to J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham might be the strongest, like might have the most pure power in this class and have the strongest punch in this class. Dude is 6'6", but 342 pounds. He's a really big guy. But even if he's another really big guy, but also moves pretty well. Like, he does not move like a 342-pound guy. He kind of moves more like a 320. 9.55 RAS score as well. 81.7 pass blocking grade. 79.6 run blocking grade. He's a very balanced guy. Maybe not the most elite player especially technical wise, but the power is the thing that really stands out about Latham. He's got real power, and he just stuns linemen. I was watching Alabama film this whole offseason, really. I watched a ton of Alabama guys, and he was a big standout, especially on the entire offensive line. 2 sacks allowed, 14 pressures allowed. But the thing about Latham is this dude's a penalty machine. 18 penalties in the last 1,700 snaps. That's around a penalty every 100 snaps, which is my biggest weakness for Latham, really. And then Troy Fautanu, or Fautanu, however you want to pronounce it. This dude moves like a tight end. He moves extremely well for an offensive tackle, but the one downside of that is he's 6'3". He's just barely under 6'4", really, but 317 pounds, and he's also a 61.9 run blocking grade, which I think did hold up on tape. He's just not the strongest player, but you trade in that pure strength that you would have had with, like, Latham, and then you convert it to movement. Like, this dude moves. His kick slide is picture perfect. He's got a very, very good kick slide, and he moves so far back from the offensive line that he's just able to set himself up for really good pass blocking snaps. 88.2 pass blocking grade for PFF. 2 sacks allowed and 23 pressures allowed, but I also think that is because he played like 990 snaps, because he played in all 15 games. And he played the majority of games for the majority of the game, Also, 9.45 RAS score. A very good athlete as well, but the movement is really what Fautanu is going to make his money on in the NFL. It's just the power department that I think could use a little bit of work, but I don't know where I think his frame looks like it's maybe maxed out. And then Olu Fashanu, I am very low on. The unfortunate thing is I'm very low on Olu Fashanu because I think he lacks, like, other than Fautanu, who lacks a bit of, I think, just functional. Fautanu doesn't lack functional power. He just lacks overwhelming power because he's just not the biggest guy. Fashanu lacks functional power when he really shouldn't. He's also 312 pounds, which makes a ton of sense. He is not the strongest, or he's not the biggest offensive lineman. He is 6'6", but he's a bit thinner for the position. And he just lacks functional power. And I think that really reflects in the run game. He had a 70 run blocking grade. I think that was worse. He is not the best at sealing edges. He can give up gaps pretty easily. And as in pass pro, he got bullied by Ohio State. I know he had 0 sacks allowed and 10 pressures allowed. He allowed 6 pressures in the Ohio State game, and he did allow a sack. I can guarantee JT Tuimoloau got at least 1 sack on him. But the positives about Olu Fashanu that makes people really like him is the athleticism and the agility and the body movement that he can just contour his body in crazy ways. Like I saw on film, he just his back could be bent all the way back, and he could just be hopping back, and he'll just hold up really well because he's very flexible. And also the agility. He can move pretty well as well, but you do trade that power for movement. 9.49 RAS score as well. So Fashanu is a bit of a weird one. I just don't see how a franchise left tackle can lack functional power. which is I just think that's a negative for offensive tackles, especially left tackles. But he is obviously a much better pass blocker, 88.4 pass blocking grade, and I only have him very slightly below Fatanu. And then Tyler Guyton, this is the most raw offensive tackle, I would say, or one of the most raw tackles in this class. The thing about him is he has a crazy long wingspan. He's also a really big player, 6'7", 322 pounds. His hand technique is not there. I don't see it being there. In the Senior Bowl, it really showed. He loves to just wrap guys. I've been saying this all offseason after I watch the Senior Bowl, and then when I watch a little bit of Oklahoma. He loves to just wrap guys, envelop guys, and his hand placement is not very structured. So I do think he's raw in that aspect. I do have a late second round grade on him, but he has some really good potential. 9.70 RAS score, a good athleticism, especially for his size, and he moves well, long wingspan, but 0 sacks, 12 pressures allowed, so good production, but his grades were a bit lower, 72.9 pass blocking grade, 60.5 run blocking grade. I think he is a bit of a worse run blocker. Sorry, somebody was calling my house. However, that's my views on Tyler Guyton. And then the exact same grade I have for, I think, all of these guys, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I'll end up finishing with the same grade, but these guys are neck and neck with each other. It's just pretty much you can move these guys around anywhere you want. So I just have the same grade as of now. I might move one of them down a little bit later. But Patrick Paul, 6'7", 331 pounds. Dude's a massive guy. As well as being a really, really good pass blocker. I think that's where he is best. 91.5 pass blocking grade. That was first in the FBS. 69.4 run blocking grade. He is a bit worse of a run blocker. And his competition, I looked at the games that he played, and I think it was only maybe 3 or 4 Power 4 now, because Pac-12 is no longer. But the competition might not have been in there, but also 86-inch wingspan. Again, a big reason why he's such a good pass blocker is because nobody can get into his frame, because he's just kind of long wingspan guy. Also, good athlete, 9.75 RAS score. And the same thing could be said about Jordan Morgan, another really good pass blocker, 87.3 pass blocking grade, 2 sacks allowed, 14 pressures, 6'5", 6'5", but he is 311 pounds. Not the best in the power department, but again, a guy who's good at not letting or defensive lineman into his frame. Good pass blocker. 9.10 RAS score as well. But out of these three, I think Jordan Morgan is a bit lower for me. I know that I saw on Twitter a few people were saying that Jordan Morgan is getting first round hype. I could see like that argument for, I think pretty much all these 6 guys are shoo-ins for the first round. Earlier in the draft process, it really was Tyler Guyton that was getting that heavy first round hype. And then another thing, look at how I have 6 third round and fourth round guys. I think for the tackle class, you got the huge chunk of guys, the huge 9 or 10 guys in the top that are like day 1, early day 2 guys. And then in the middle, it gets a lot smaller. But then in the end, you get a lot more, not depth here, but I do think it is a good tackle class with depth. I think it's just missing that middle of the draft, ability. I think that's kind of made up for within the guard class, because I have a lot of guys within that chunk. But yeah, for Roger Rosengarten, again, the right tackle for Washington. They were the best offensive line in college football, whatever that award was, but they were a really good offensive line. So 6'5", 308 pounds. He is light. He's light for the position, but he's young, redshirt sophomore, 21 years old, 80.8 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks allowed, and 15 pressures allowed. In 993 total snaps, he played a ton, and a 9.61 RAS score. Very good. So we got the positives are the pass blocking and a good athlete. Also moves very similar to Fatanu, another guy who moves really well on tape. And also 0 sacks allowed in 900 snaps is a big positive. The big negative about him is I do not think he's a very great run blocker. And I think PFF agreed, 59.6 run blocking grade. Also not the most powerful player, really, when I was watching Washington, especially with the Romo Dunze stuff and while I was watching Penix. He can get in the run game, really. It's more about the run game. I think that's just kind of his negative within the power department, but moves well and is a good pass blocker. Christian Jones, I was actually pretty impressed by Christian Jones. I think he's very underrated within this tackle class. When I was watching the Jonathan Brooks tape, I really liked when he ran to the right side. 6'5", 305 pounds. I think he's the lightest offensive tackle in this class, and I think it definitely shows. But again, 78 pass blocking grade, 65 run blocking grade. I think it could have been a little higher. 1 sack allowed, 11 pressures allowed. But the big negative is another penalty machine. 8 in 2023, and he had 29 total penalties in the last 4 years starting. A bit older also, 23 years old. And the lightness shows on tape. He's a bit thinner, but he also had a good Pro Bowl. Or not Pro Bowl, Senior Bowl. So I think that Christian Jones is a bit underrated within this draft. And then Kyron Amejadihe. Again, a difficult name to pronounce. If I butchered that, I'm very sorry. However, this guy is actually surprisingly really good tackle out of Yale. Don't see many Yale players in the NFL, of course. 6'5", 323 pounds. This dude's a good pass blocker. 79.9 pass blocking grade. It should have been higher. 0 sacks allowed and only 5 pressures. The thing is he only played around 5 games. I think maybe 5 or 6 games. His injuries cut his 2023 season early, and he didn't play in the first 2 games at Yale. Another really good run blocker. 87.9 run blocking grade. That was within the top 5. It was in the top 3 for this draft class. However, the competition he's going to face at the FCS level, he really played a lot of Ivy teams, and those guys do not have edge rushers. So you really got to factor in the competition here. But with those numbers and also how he looks pretty good in his snaps played, I am going to give him that 3rd round day 2, really late day 2 guy. Again, 6.20 is my cap for day 3. He's only 1 point above that. And then Javon Foster, Mizzou guy, 6'5", 313 pounds. His PFF grades were really good. 80.9 pass blocking grade, 86.5 run blocking grade, 1 sack allowed, 13 pressures. Had a really good year. It's just the thing about Foster is he can allow power guys to get into his chest early and is susceptible to knockback, which is why I kind of have him as a 4th round grade. But other than that, his numbers did look really good. Just kind of in the movement department, he also is a little sluggish for 313 pounds. And then Kingsley Su'Mata'i, a lot of people are high on, surprisingly. Surprisingly, a lot of people are high on Su'Mata'i. I only watched 1 game of BYU. I'll be fully upfront with that. I only watched 1 game of BYU, and it was his worst game, which was Ohio State, and he got destroyed. I'm pretty sure Jack Sawyer. Texas. Ohio State did not play BYU. Texas versus BYU was the only game that I saw this year, and he had 2 sacks allowed in that game, and it was the worst game for him of the season. I think he had a grade within the 40s for that. But 86.1 pass blocking grade, 2 sacks allowed, 13 pressures, a good athlete, 99.38 RAS score. Also is young, 21, redshirt sophomore. 52.9 run blocking grade is a huge red flag. He also is a swing tackle. If you guys noticed, you see like left tackle, right tackle. Su'Mata'i is my first swing tackle, which is highlighted by OT, which is he can play right tackle, he can play left tackle. Also highlighted is guard, which is his secondary position because he has played guard in the past, and he was listed as a guard for the Senior Bowl also, but he did test as a tackle at the Combine. But then moving on to, I forgot to mention, run blocking is, I do think, a negative for him. Again, 52.9 run blocking grade, and I think that does show up. But also the only game that I watched from him was Texas, so I get a little bit of I get the worst of him. So Blake Fisher, when I was watching Notre Dame, and especially when I was watching Joe Alt, in the beginning of the offseason, I had Blake Fisher at around a day 2 grade. Now I moved him down to day 3. It just felt like there was a big disconnect between the tackles. You had Joe Alt getting everybody, cleaning up everything, and then Blake Fisher was a bit, not struggling a bit more, but it was just, he didn't have the same dominance. He didn't have the same, he just kind of more looked like a regular tackle. 72 pass blocking grade, 69 run blocking grade, 3 sacks and 15 pressures allowed. Overall, just kind of made all those stats kind of made sense. He kind of just felt like an average, slightly above average right tackle, especially. But redshirt sophomore, 6'5", 310 pounds. Blake Fisher, to me in my film breakdown, especially when I was looking at Joe Alt, I just didn't see, nothing much stood out. And then for the next couple of guys, I'm definitely going to go a lot faster because I know a lot less about these guys because I didn't watch a good amount of them. Other than I'll get to the Penn State guys, but a lot of these teams I just didn't watch in 2023 and that I will never get to within the film stuff. So the numbers will kind of have to take cake. But so it's Satoa Lemieux. Do not know how to pronounce his name. However, I did a Utah game for data in this year actually. 6'4", 319 pounds, 54 pass blocking grade. I do not think that is correct. He only allowed 0 sacks, however 29 pressures. And it was pretty consistent throughout the board. He allowed like a minimum 1 or 2 pressures a game, other than if it wasn't. But his film looked a little better than his 54 pass blocking grade. Again, 68 run blocking grade as well. But the film for me, which is I did a live game. I do data from live games. It looked better. He didn't look like he was a guy that was a 54 pass blocking grade kind of guy. Good power as well. And then Delmar Glaze, 6'4", 313 pounds, good pass blocker, but not as much. Like 83.6 pass blocking grade, he allowed 3 sacks and 14 pressures. 63 run blocking grade, but didn't watch a ton of Maryland, so. But I do have him as a 5th round grade. Matt Conclavis, 6'6", 327 pounds. This dude did not play a lot last year. I think he only played 3 games because of injury, so not a lot to go off of here. So 0 sacks, 4 pressures allowed. Decent grades, 77 pass blocking grade, 69 run blocking grade. Kind of all I can go off of is other people's opinions off of him. Only played 3 games, and I didn't watch any Pitt this year. But Walter Rouse, 6'5", 313 pounds. Good pass blocker, I would say. 83.8 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks, 6 pressures allowed. Those are all good numbers with a 99.3 pass blocking grade. But he's another penalty machine. He had 9 in 2023. Also a bit of a worse run blocker. He had 313 pounds and he's 6'6", or a 66 run blocking grade. But then Garrett Greenfield. I moved up a little too much. Garrett Greenfield. This dude is really explosive. I did not watch any San Diego State University. However, 5'11", 311 pounds. He broke the tackle. This is actually how I learned about him. Was he broke the vert record for offensive tackles at 38.5. But 82.6 pass blocking grade, 3 sacks allowed, 9 pressures, 56.6 run blocking grade, which is a bit of a red flag. And then Jalen Sundell is my other FCS guys. These are 2 FCS. This is North Dakota State University. The thing about Jalen Sundell is I have him as a left tackle / center because he played center he played center for 3 straight years and then moved to left tackle in 2023. And he did well, 89.2 run blocking grade, only 1 sack, 9 pressures, 78 run blocking grade. But I don't think he would have any success at tackle if he moved to the NFL. 77 wingspan was the lowest for all tackles. And again, the FCS has worse competition within the trenches. Caden Wallace, when I was watching Penn State, not my favorite guy. 6'4", 314 pounds, 62 pass blocking grade, 67 run blocking grade, 1 sack, 13 pressures. If I didn't like Ola Fasana that much, I was not going to love Caden Wallace either that much. Again, an average right tackle. I think he's more of a backup kind of guy. And then Trent Jones. Trent Jones was so weird. 6'5", 305 pounds. He's a grad student. He's a bit older at 23. He's going to turn 24 soon. 79 pass blocking grade, sure, but I'm not, and also 0 sacks and 3 pressures. You would think this guy's really good. However, this dude was a part-time player. He only had 4 games with over 30 snaps, and 3 of those games were the majority of it. I think he had under 300 snaps last year. He had like only 300 something in 2022. All of his big games, which were like the 50s and the 60s, those snap counts were all of the college football playoff games, which makes me think that this dude was a backup, and I think that Trent Jones was, because he did not play a ton at all, and I'm pretty sure he was a backup, because I forgot where he was in Michigan when I was watching, and I will watch the JJ McCarthy tape, so I'll look a little bit closer to Trent Jones, but what the numbers are telling me was this dude was a backup. Ethan Driscoll, again, nothing. The one thing that about him that is a huge positive is the wingspan, 86-inch wingspan, but 3 sacks and 20 pressures allowed, and I did not watch any Marshall, so that's kind of all the information I can get about him. And then again, like what NFL.com would say about him. Nathan Thomas, another bit of a rough player. He is big at 6'5", 332 pounds, but 5 sacks, 12 pressures allowed. This dude is not the... He's just sluggish. He just moves really sluggish. Frank Crum really got a ton of combine hype because of his hair. 6'8", tall as hell dude, 313 pounds, but 57 pass blocking grade, 4 sacks allowed, and 20 pressures allowed at Wyoming, which is not the best, but again, 9.83 RAS score, so good athlete. Andrew Coker is barely a graded guy. 53 run blocking grade, and he's not, and I watched a little TCU, bad run blocker. Bad run blocker. And I think PFF, I think that the grade reflected that. Again, 1 sack, 21 pressures allowed. He's fine, but he is my last draftable tackle in my opinion. And then Julian Pearl. What can I say? The brother can't pass block. 7 sacks allowed and 27 pressures, 57 pass blocking grade. He's undraftable. I almost cut him off of the board, but he is on all mock drafts and blah, blah, blah. But now moving on to the interior offensive line. This will take around the same time that the offensive tackles will. Graham Barton is actually an offensive tackle that I would have had ranked 10th for my tackles, but he was in the Senior Bowl. He was like a center, and the Senior Bowl, and then at the Combine, he listed himself as an interior offensive lineman. So this man gets the benefit of the doubt, and because he's the highest graded interior offensive lineman, he played left tackle. He played left tackle at Duke. He played left tackle. So technically, he's not the best interior, the best true interior offensive lineman. That award goes to Christian Haynes, who I'll say in a second. But he gets the benefit of the doubt because he just is listed as an interior offensive lineman. Graham Barton, not the most impressive year this year. Last year in 2022 was his really good year. He was one of PFF's highest graded tackles. Young guy, 21 years old, even though he's a senior. 78 pass blocking grade, 71 run blocking grade, 2 sacks allowed, 11 pressures. He did have 2 injuries that sidelined him for like 2 or 3 games in the middle of the season. But overall, Graham Barton, good athletic traits. And I know the reason why he moved to interior offensive lineman. His wingspan is around 81 inches, which is a bit smaller for linemen. And he's not the best against power or the best against speed rushers. So I think that's a big reason why he moved to interior offensive line. But Christian Haynes is really my best interior offensive lineman. 6'2", 313 pounds. He's a really stocky guy. 82.5 pass blocking grade, 80 run blocking grade, 1 sack allowed, 10 pressures allowed, 9.1 RAS score. Christian Haynes, saw him a bunch at UConn. I'm from Connecticut. And that's the closest, best football team to me at the D2 level. Or the D1 level, the only Connecticut college that is D1. However, Christian Haynes, dude was dominant at UConn. I would say, is a better run blocker, but he's also very secure as a pass blocker. I saw him at the Senior Bowl as well. Very good. Good technically as well, especially for the competition he played. He looked a lot better than everybody else at that level. Cooper Beebe, Kansas State guy, left guard. He also played tackle. This dude's a very stocky guy. 6'3", 222 pounds. But a great pass blocker. This dude's kind of like a wall. 90.4 pass blocking grade. 2 sacks allowed, but only 9 pressures. Good athlete, but it's more of like his size. But he's more of kind of just a wall. He kind of just halts everybody. He's got good power as well. And then Christian Mahogany. This dude moves very well. and is great in the second level. Mahogany, 6'4", 313 pounds, 82 pass blocking grade, 74 run blocking grade, but 0 sacks, 7 pressures allowed, 91 pass blocking efficiency, good athlete, 96.4 RAS score, and he moves really well. Zach Zinter, big captain at Michigan, did break his leg in the Ohio State game, so he didn't play in the national championship, but great run blocker. 75.8 run blocking grade, that should have been a lot higher, because he's really good at opening up gaps and being essentially a gap help. They ran a ton of inside zones at Michigan, and he was a big reason why a lot of them were successful. But again, if we're talking about Zach Zinter as a pass blocker, 0 sacks allowed, 5 pressures allowed. So Zach Zinter will be my 5th guard. And then Mason McCormick, same grade. I have a Zach Zinter because I think they're interchangeable. This dude was kind of crazy at South Dakota State this year. Man, 85.4 pass blocking grade, 90 run blocking grade at 6'4", 309 pounds, 0 sacks and 3 pressures, and a 99.6 pass blocking efficiency. But again, I always do feel that there is a difference between FCS level and FBS level, especially within the trenches. Also, he'll be 24 in May. I think that's kind of maybe why. I mean, this guard class is just kind of really old. A lot of these guys are minimum 23 years old, and Mason McCormick will be 24 very soon in May. But this dude was dominant at the FCS level, and especially as a run blocker. Who was the running back that they had? It was where is he? Here it is, Isaiah Davis. This dude had like 1,500 rushing yards, and Mason McCormick was like, they were just running it to his side, and the gaps were just opening up, and he was just leveling guys. But Dominic Pooney, I have as a 6'1" flat, 6'3", 313 pounds, 24 years old, or older class, but 90.4 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks allowed, 8 pressures, 72 run blocking grade, but dude's a great pass blocker. Also, he is a tackle. He played tackle the majority of the time at Kansas. Is listed as an interior offensive lineman, more of just because his wingspan's a bit shorter. But yeah. Trevor Keegan is my only 5th round guy, which is strange because you kind of look at, you have a ton of late day 3 guys, and you have the early day 3 guys, and then I think there's a humongous gap between McCormick and KT Levittson. You do have these 2 guys in the middle, but there's a huge gap. Trevor Keegan is solid as a pass blocker, really. 80.7 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks allowed, 11 pressures, 63 run blocking grade. I could have been a little higher, 6'5", 310 pounds. Again, Michigan's offensive line was really good last year, and Trevor Keegan was pretty solid as well. But then KT Levittson is kind of where you see a bit more of the fall off. 6'3", 326 pounds, 24 years old. Again, Kansas State. You had a 72 pass blocking grade, 64 run blocking grade, 2 sacks allowed, 18 pressures. Again, older, and maybe not the best. Allowed quite a bit of pressures for a guard. And then Matthew Jones out of Ohio State was crazy inconsistent. He had a 1.8 pass blocking grade against Michigan, and he had a 28 pass blocking grade against Maryland. If you look at his PFF numbers, it's like you have a crazy good game, and then you have a really bad game, which is kind of like that Michigan game. A 1.8 pass blocking grade, but again, why? It's 0 sacks, 7 pressures allowed, 67 pass blocking grade, 71 run blocking grade. He's just really crazy inconsistent. And then you got Hunter Nordzad, who really played center last year at Penn State, but he's played every single position. Played tackle, played right tackle, played left tackle, played both guard positions, and then played full-time center last year. 61 pass blocking grade is not very good. 16 pressures allowed. Better run blocker, I think, as well. 77 run blocking grade. Saw him a bit at Penn State. I'm just not really high on a bunch of the Penn State offensive line. They just didn't. They weren't as good against good competition. Javon Cohen is a terrible run blocker. 55 run blocking grade, and I think that holds up a lot. Better pass blocker One sack allowed, only 13 pressures, but he's whatever. Michael Jurgens, the thing about him is I don't even know if he's in this draft. I looked on PFF just to try to find some guards because I was so struggling to find them. And I was like, oh, look at this Michael Jurgens. He had a 81 pass blocking grade, 86 run blocking grade, 1 sack allowed to 7 pressures. He didn't go to the Senior Bowl. He didn't go to the Combine. He is eligible for this class because he's a redshirt senior. This is his last year eligibility. 6'4", 311 pounds. He doesn't have that many red flags. I don't know if he's in this draft. Or if he did something controversial, then sure. I'll take him off my board. But I have no idea if this dude is in this draft or not. So I'll just kind of keep him here. He's also, because he also played center at Wake Forest, but I can't find his information anywhere online. Whether he declared, whether he's even in this draft, whether anybody's even graded him, I have not heard anything. And if he's not that good, then the PFF was lying about him. But I have no information about him. I could not find it. Brandon Coleman is just, again, TCU did not have the great offensive line. He's fine. I mean, 0 sacks allowed, sure, but 20 pressures. Great athlete. 9.98 RAS score. That was number 1 among all linemen outside of like Tanner Boylini. But not that good. Also, another terrible run blocker. 55 run blocking grade, 64 pass blocking grade. And then Isaiah Adams. This dude is terrible. He should not even, I don't think he'll make an NFL roster. He had 9 sacks allowed, 31 pressures, which is at Illinois, really. I don't even think this guy's draftable. And then moving on to center, again, I'm going to talk about these 3 guys, and then you kind of lose me. Jackson Powers Johnson has a first-round grade. He's very, very, very good. He's 6'3", but 328 pounds. For a center, that is massive. He's a massive center. That would be the heaviest center in the league right now. 21 years old, junior. He's young. Was a really good guard in 2022. Moved to center this year. Was a 4-star center out of high school. 90.6 pass blocking grade. This dude allowed 1 pressure last year. Really good technique. Really good power. Also great run blocker. 85.2 run blocking grade. I've done my film on Jackson Powers Johnson, and I've written my report. My prospect breakdown will come out in April, most likely. Pretty much like mid-April. I'm counting on that, so stay tuned for that. But Zach Frazier is another very good center prospect, because the thing about him is this dude was a 4-time wrestling champion in high school. He just does a whole bunch of wrestling takedowns. It feels like at West Virginia. I see a bunch of Twitter clips, and it's like this dude has really good use of leverage, which makes a ton of sense. He's a wrestler, but also really good pass blocker. 77.9 pass blocking grade is lying. You only had 0 sacks allowed, 7 pressures, which is good. But 73.2 run blocking grade. Also has very good power. 6'2", 313 pounds, bit of like a bowling ball. And then Cedric Van Pont Granger is another solid pass blocker, 81.5 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks, but 13 pressures. It's more like because he faced a lot better of competition at the SEC level. SEC's got really good defensive linemen. And the thing about him is he's light. He's just very light for the position, and that's why I have him behind these guys. 298 pounds, 6'4", and it kind of makes a lot of sense with the his technique is great. It's just the power department is a bit limited. Again, also with the run blocking, 76 run blocking grade, which makes sense. He's not the most powerful run blocker. He doesn't open up a ton of gaps. He's kind of just more of a, when in run blocking, he's kind of just holding defensive linemen instead of pushing them all the way back. And then Buke Slimmer, guard, center. He could play both positions. 6'4", 302 pounds. 61 pass blocking grade. He's not the best pass blocker. 3 sacks, 12 pressures allowed. However, high athletic traits and high explosive traits as well. Highest center vertical of all time with the 36.5 vert, 9.8 RAS score as well. Better of a run blocker though, 77 run blocking grade. And then Drake Nugent, again, a bit of a lighter guy, smaller guy for the position, 6'1", 298 pounds, but isn't really lacking in any department. Again, well, Michigan's offensive line, they're losing a ton of guys, but it was really good last year. Both grades were in the 68 pass blocking grade, 68 run blocking grade, 1 sack, and 9 pressures allowed. He was overall very solid. And then after this, you kind of lose me with the rest of the guys. Charles Turner is not a good run blocker. I watched a ton of LSU. But I mean, they were kind of a weird offense because Jayden Daniels just loved to run a lot. But a lot of the pressure that came from LSU was either the right side or the interior. It was not Will Campbell at left tackle. Will Campbell's a beast. But Charles Turner, I mean, he was fine. 80 pass blocking grade. That was really where he was best as. Was holding up for quite a long time because that's kind of what happened with Jayden Daniels. 1 sack, 9 pressures allowed, but 65 run blocking grade. And then Tanner Bortolini, this dude got ran over a bunch, but really, really good combine. 4.94 40 time. He was the only center under 5 seconds for that 9.79 RAS score. Good pass blocker. I mean, not a good pass blocker, a decent pass blocker, I'll say. The numbers look a lot better with an 80 pass blocking grade and 1 sack and 11 pressures. But 61.1 run blocking grade made a ton of sense. He does not have a bunch of functional power, and he kind of got ran over a few times at Wisconsin. And then Dylan McMahon, he played guard really at NC State. Oh, no, he played center majority of the time, but he can play both. He was fine. I mean, 299 pounds, but 71 pass blocking grade, 68 run blocking grade, 1 sack, 12 pressures allowed. High athletic traits at 98.8 RAS score, but he's just really not the best technically power department-wise. He's just kind of fine. And then Andrew Ram, again, I got a guy that I think will go undrafted. Nothing very special about him either. 3 sacks, 16 pressures, not the greatest guy at Oklahoma. But really, for this offensive line class, I do think it's top heavy. I think they lose me a lot within the later rounds. Other than tackle, I think that the middle of the tackle class here is really good, or not really good, but I think it's solid depth. It's really the top heavy guys, like the first 5 tackles, the first 4, 5, or 6 guards, and then the first 3 centers. And then the center class loses me in the end. The guard class really loses me in the end. And then the tackle class, again, really loses me in the end. However, the tackle class is what? It is 4th currently. I'll probably end up moving that a little bit down. But that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe if you guys want access to my 2024 NFL Draft Board. Of course, it is free on my Patreon. Go support that as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video.